You are joining us tonight for kind of an unveiling of our Bridging for Math Strength resources. My name is Tina Mazikane. I'm the K-12 Mathematics Coordinator here at the Virginia Department of Education. We're very excited to roll out a new resource tonight that we've been working on, the VDOE math team alongside some partners at George Mason University in order to support you this year as you move forward in bridging from some of the unfinished learning that students may have from last year into this current school year. So even if you have started school yet, or you're still in the midst of planning for the kiddos to come back, we hope that this resource will be very helpful to you. So I wanted to just go ahead and recognize my colleagues that are here on the call from our Virginia Department of Education math team. There are 3 of us. Deb Delosier is a math specialist at the department, and Kristen Williams-Foss, she is a special education and mathematics specialist. And then for our friends at the George Mason University, we have 2 esteemed colleagues, Dr. Sa and Dr. Wills. They are both working very hard to get this together for you. And I'm going to let Dr. Sa take over and talk to us a little bit more about the website. So Jen, if you could move us forward.
Sure. Thank you. Thanks for joining us this evening. We're very excited. It's great to see you all. I do want to share with you our title, Bridging for Math Strength. We hope you appreciate the little icon. I created it, but I just thought it was a really nice icon for us to kind of focus on how we're bridging and we're really building strength. So I just wanted to put that little plug, but please do put your name as, put your grade level, first name. And if you're a coach, if you want to just kind of talk, say the grade band that you'd like to kind of focus on, I think that would be great. So please do that. And so this evening, our agenda for tonight is to kind of give you an overview and a tour and an opportunity to explore some of the resources. And we want to kind of give you an idea of how you might use this with your teachers. And so before we get started, I would love to get our teacher designers to turn on their cameras and wave. We actually collaborated with teachers, coaches, math supervisors from actually across Virginia. VDOE did a really nice job helping us recruit some teacher designers who would help us in this work. And we couldn't have done this work without them. They actually did all the heavy lifting. I do want to share that we had a summer boot camp. They dedicated 30 hours this summer to really kind of put these modules together with their expertise in the grade level and their teaching experience. This was the best way to design these modules. So we thank them. We also had summer school teachers who actually took some of the design modules and tested it out with kiddos. And they gave us some feedback. They gave us some formative assessment data that really helped us kind of think about our work around bridging concepts and if we were on point. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, but I do want to kind of showcase our wonderful teacher designers, and I have our teacher designers on the About page of our website. So when you get a chance later on to explore, you might see some of your friends here, but I just wanted to recognize them, and I think they were waving their hands earlier. So again, we want to tell you that this is really the work of all of our math teacher designers, and just want to tap into the geniuses that we have around Virginia. And so our hats off to them. So let me go ahead and put this back on present mode so you can see it nice and clearly. So our goal tonight is to really kind of give you a little bit of the rationale, because I think it's important for you to kind of have some schema around how this was designed, because that will help you also think about how you might use it in your school district, maybe your PLC or CLT. And so we'll talk a little bit about that, then give you a chance to explore with some light grade band folks. So let me go ahead and just share with you kind of the motivation. There's a lot of wonderful resources, and our national organization put out this kind of recommended list of things that really teachers and coaches and supervisors can focus on as we build back better. And I wish I could say post-pandemic, but really this idea of how do we actually focus on really the things that matter most, and keeping the joy and humanity in teaching and learning. I love that they had that first. But our project really focuses on a lot of these elements, but one of the key focus is this idea of focusing on and teaching to students' strength. And that's at the very core of this project. And I think it's also the core of a lot of how you think about teaching your students. So I'm hoping that some of these resources that you might have explored with this recommendations from the organizations will help you kind of look at some of these resources. But when we talk about like really building on student strength, what do we mean? And we've really leaned on a lot of the work by Beth Corbett and Karen Karp. In fact, our teacher designers really focused on a book study as well as they were designing these modules. But this notion of math strength, right? It's broader than just kind of thinking about computational skills and proficiency. So I really do like the way Corbett and Karp talks about math strength, and they kind of broaden this notion of what we mean by competence. And as classroom teachers, you know that we're so very powerful in the ways that we can assign competence and how that impacts students' math confidence, competence, as well as their math identity. So I really like the way they talk about, you know, we have kids who have dispositional strength, right? They persevere through problem solving, they take risks, they're collaborative. But we also have students who really have these process and practice strength, this idea of being able to explain in ways that, you know, kids get it, right? Or they have like varied ways of representing their thinking. They're really skillful at using manipulatives, as well as content knowledge, right? We have kids who are really, really facile with number sense, and they can connect the content to other real world problems. They can actually apply a lot of the procedures. So we know that the ways we want to really kind of support students' math strengths can be varied in these ways. And we hope that you're exploring some of these ideas in your district as well. This was kind of just to kind of provide you the context and the rationale. But another really important piece that I wanted to provide you as just kind of a kind of like foregrounding is this notion of designing for strength-based instruction. And you know, this really, I'm sharing this for two reasons. One, because this is very similar to the ways that our teacher designers designed the modules, but it also reflects a process that you all might use in your school, your district, to kind of wrap your heads around, like, what do we mean by strength-based instruction, and how might we use these resources that we provided in these modules? So let me just start with the first step, which, you know, we always focus on the learning goals, and that's not a surprise, but how do we use the learning goals to really take stock of what students come with, right? Their funds of knowledge, the strength that they bring, the assets, right? And so that's really key to part of our design. And so you'll see in our modules that we focus on our standards, and we have these kind of 3 boxes that we kind of try to map out, you know, what are the strengths that students come with in these different grade levels? And what are the bridging concepts that actually are precursors to these really important targeted standards? And of course, we can't list every single bridging concept that might be important, but we can definitely identify these essential ones. And so our bridging for math strength really focuses on that centerpiece. What are the bridging concepts, and what are the tasks, routines, and games that will really support those bridging concepts? So although we have wonderful tools already around the standards, we're really trying to focus on what can we also provide you that will be the bridging resources. And as we're thinking about the goals and thinking about the learning progression, which we do a lot when we're looking at, like, you know, how students are progressing through the conceptual domains, we also really think about how it's important for us to know some research around that. And so what we provided was just kind of a teaser around the research that we have around learning trajectories. And the term learning trajectory really kind of talks about a pathway that kids might develop, similar to the learning progressions. But one idea I think that's really powerful is that, you know, not all kids progress the same way, and it's not linear always. They might actually have these different kinds of ideas that they bring together to make sense of problems. So we wanted to kind of bring some research-based learning trajectory information. And so if you pull down these arrows, we have some just-in-time professional development resources for you all as teachers and coaches to share. And that really helps us deepen our understanding around that concept, but also anticipate where students might have these conceptions. And oftentimes we do have a lot of documents that focus on misconceptions, but we like to call them just conceptions kids come with, right? And thinking about how do we actually identify those and think about questions that might be posed to make math visible, advance their thinking, and as well as clarify their thinking. So we actually provide look-fors and questions in that pull-down menu. And as we're deepening our own understanding of it, we also realize that, we need some data. And so VDOE has these wonderful just-in-time quick checks that I'm sure many of you have used. And so one of the things that we did during the summer was, we designed these modules, but we had to look at some of the student work to really say, are bridging concepts really on point? And when you look at some of the student work, you can see that they definitely have some strength, and we want to identify those strengths. Then we also see there's opportunities to advance their thinking. So what questions might we ask? And once we have those questions in mind, we also think about, well, what might be that one routine, that one rich task or game that would really target that? And there's so many great resources. We actually wanted to kind of give you the best of the best. And so although we have a full module with a lot of other resources, we actually showcase one or two at the most around the rich task, routines, and games. And we're really interested in finding the edge of student understanding. That's what formative assessment does. And that's the most important thing for us as teachers, because once we know the edge of their understanding, then we know where to move them forward. So as we kind of go on through this cycle, you can see that the bridging activities, as I mentioned, provides you those quick, link to the formative assessment. This is like a one-stop shop. Although there's lots of great, links on the VDOE website, we kind of pulled it all together for you so that you can actually have the formative assessment right there with some visuals. You'll have some routines that are, really vetted, and they're very targeted, rich tasks and games. We also have some additional resources in that full module. That's a Google Doc. And obviously, the whole, eye on the prize is celebrating students' work. So we're really interested in you all sharing some student artifacts as well. So this kind of gives you an idea of the design process, but it might also provide you an opportunity to think about, well, how might I use this with my teachers at my school or with my colleague? And so hopefully that helps you kind of provide you with a little bit of the research-based design features that really guided us in the design. So I'm going to kind of give you the tour. I'm the tour guide for you all today. And so if you have access to the MathStrengthorg website, we decided that we were actually going to invest in this wonderful website and design this all for you all. It's a design process though. And so we're always seeking feedback from you all. And so I want to give you a little preview. And so I'm going to start with the about, and besides our wonderful photos of our teacher designers, you will see that there are actually 5 links here. And we, as I mentioned, we think it's really important for you to understand that learning progressions and trajectories actually help us understand where kids are in that continuum. And that actually is what helps us focus on that asset-based instruction. Instead of looking at gaps of understanding or that grade level expectation that puts them below grade level, we remove some of those kind of parameters, and we just think about how do kids progress when we're doing fraction understanding? How do they understand equal partitioning? What are some of the key kind of benchmarks that they actually have to progress through as they're learning about linear equations? So one of the things that we really try to do is provide you with some resources. On the very bottom, there's some great resources. Some of them are websites, some of them are documents. Of course, you can, if you love research, you might spend a lot of time on this one tab called professional learning. And during our summer boot camp, our teacher designers that you see around us, they spend a lot of time curating and spending time with the rich tasks, routines, and games. And although this is not exhaustive, we put the best of the best that we thought would get you started. So some of these you might be familiar with, but there are some others that you may not know I love this Solve Me puzzle. It's great for algebra. I should not get distracted and take you down that rabbit hole. But I mean, that's what's going to happen. You're going to love the curated list of resources. This is just great PD for you all to enjoy. And there's, of course, you have colleagues who talk about tasks. And so it might even help for you to share a little bit of research, like what do we mean by rich tasks? It's not these kind of, worksheets with, those kinds of cookie cutter word problems. It's really these idea of procedures with connections and doing math. So we created some resources for you at your fingertips. And then finally, there is this notion of like, okay, well, we found out our families do so much with our kiddos. And so we know that families are our assets. So while we're kind of focused on this bridging for MathStrengths, we want to dedicate a page for family connection. So this might give you some research around how we engage families, but also some resources. So that's just kind of the about, and has some wonderful resources. So I hope that you'll enjoy that. Now for the fun part where you get to grade level information and resources. This is the grades 3 to 8 webinar. So I'll just showcase what you might find in your grade 3 through 8. It's very similar all across. But one thing that we want to kind of put out there is this idea that, our teacher designers are mighty, but there were about 25 of them. So this is a Herculean task for them to kind of create this in the time that we had. So we're going through a design process. And so we're actually vetting these tasks. We're actually going to do a teacher study group around it. And those of you who love things like that, let us know if you're interested in joining us. But we are actually going to be vetting them and putting them on the websites. And so every time you come back, we're going to have the enhanced and refined standards up. We're hoping to kind of get all of these up by fall. So that's kind of our timeline, but they are all created. We're just kind of making sure that we give the highest quality resources. So just kind of going through our final stages of vetting. But there's enough for us to get started with. So tonight, what we're wanting to do is give you an opportunity to check out the resources. Again, the pull down menu allows you to kind of get the just-in-time PD around like, okay, what are my look fors when I'm teaching this? What are some questions that I want to ask? But there's a whole document that actually is more comprehensive that you might click on, and this will provide you not just what you see on the website, but also some wonderful resources that VDO has created over the years, all in one place. Okay, so let me just kind of toggle back to our PowerPoint and make sure you can see full screen. I think you can. If you can't, just let me know. And so just kind of as we get excited about these resources, I kind of want to have you do a little fun stuff with us. So, as math teachers, we always love looking at student work. And so our summer school teachers provided us with some work. And this is actually from a 3rd grade just-in-time quick check. And actually, just-in-time quick checks would be really great for us to kind of get some student work. So again, if you do some work with the just-in-time quick check, please send us some student work that we can showcase. But just take a look at this, and maybe in the chat box, if you could kind of say, all right, if this was my student, what math strengths might I identify? And if you could just kind of do some general noticing about the student work. What strength do they have, and what evidence do you have? And maybe you can just take a moment to put that in the chat. All right, so lots of great information. They're using representations. They have a nice drawing. They're using fact families. And oftentimes kids, when you ask them to visualize and kind of represent a problem, sometimes they're just so literal, right? And so they kind of just represent. You've seen like subtraction problems where they'll have, all the different base 10 blocks, and instead of just kind of comparing quantities and eliminating, they'll just kind of represent it with, the subtrahend and the minuend all represented, right? So it's a big base 10 like visual. So I think there's a lot of different things. What questions might you ask to advance the student's thinking? So maybe that's something that you might want to write in the chat. So definitely correct, fact family, they have the, the correct answer, 35. Maybe having some exposure with some arrays might be a great next step. So like, that's where we kind of get into thinking about what routines, what rich tasks or games might bridge the student's understanding, right? So we start thinking about all these different ideas. Now this is another representation, and it says, same problem, use pictures and words to show your thinking. It says represent two different ways. So, they definitely seem to have some equal groups and, how many in each group. So this idea of, circles and stars, like the whole idea of equal grouping is represented. Perhaps maybe that student and this student could get together and do some arrays, because that might be a next step, right? We might want to show some area. So this idea is really important for us to kind of think about what routines, rich tasks, and games might bridge the understanding. So this is kind of whetting your appetite for the next part that Dr. Wills is going to kind of explain. And make sure you have the website open, because when we get into breakout rooms, we want to make sure that you have the link. It's pretty easy to remember, MathStrength.org. All right, Teresa.
Thank you. All right, it's time for you all to go to the website in small groups. I've put you with your grade levels. The first thing you're going to do is network with one another, find out something about them, find out how to get in touch, network across the state. You're going to go to our website, MathStrength.org. Go ahead and open that now. And then you'll look at some of the different standards and you'll see we've already got several up there. Again, there's more to come. Take a look at how everything is located. It's all in one place. Look for those tasks, those routines, and those games. Look at the way the strengths are up at front and center, and that those bridging concepts can help you notice your student strengths and get them onto the grade level that you're teaching. So again, have your link open. You'll definitely want to do that now. Again, check out your chat box for that link, have it open. You're going to get an invite to your breakout room. Introduce yourself and then take a look at the website. Breakout rooms are officially open. You can head in there, but make sure you have the website open first. If you haven't been assigned a room, I'm assigning you right now as we speak. It looks like most people are assigned. Hello and welcome back to the main room. We're all back together now. And as you had some time to explore MathStrength.org, we'd like you to do a chat waterfall about your favorite discovery. So chat waterfall gives us equitable wait time. We can all type in, but don't hit enter yet. We'll all hit enter at the same time. What was your favorite discovery on MathStrength.org? What was your favorite discovery? And whenever you're ready, you can start that waterfall. And like any waterfall, it just keeps on going. So keep those ideas coming along. Let's see. Terry Davis, let's start with you. You wrote on here that there was a learning progression summary at the top so that teachers could scaffold. Why is this so important to you? Why was that your favorite?
I think sometimes teachers aren't real sure of what specific skills the students should have learned prior to the standard they're teaching. And so if they know to look for those skills and encourage those skills in centers and stations, then they're better preparing the kids to move forward.
Absolutely. Just that awareness right there is there for us. How about Chelsea Queen? Hi there. You mentioned that everything is all in one location. Why is this so important to you?
It saves time.
Yep. I completely agree. It absolutely saves time. Janice Cook, you mentioned that breaking down the resources by standard. Why is that important to you?
I thought it was one of the most important resources because it'll be easier for teachers, say if they're teaching SOL 3.4a for that day, they can just go directly into it versus having to search for it, like Chelsea was saying about the saving time.
Yeah, absolutely. And Stephanie mentions accessing every grade, and that will help you differentiate. How do you see the different grade levels being there, helping you to differentiate?
So I'm actually already back at school, and my students have a really big array of understanding. And so what I'm excited about is that I have students who are ready for rich tasks that are close to fifth grade level, bridging fourth to fifth grade. But then I also have students who need some rich tasks that are going to be more accessible to them. And so I'm excited that I have all these resources that are from third grade and fourth grade that I can pull from to help support those students, and they'll be easy to find because otherwise you don't always have access to other grade level content.
Indeed. And Laura, you mentioned the activities to include rich tasks. Many of us teachers are starting to implement more and more rich tasks, but we like to have a variety of resources. How did you find the rich tasks on the MathStrength.org?
I really enjoyed looking at those and the variety they had within the rich tasks. And I think I'm going to go back to what everybody has said. The one thing we can't put on a budget order or an invoice is time. I mean, it's just so nice to have everything in one place. And sometimes I get lost when I'm looking because I find something and get distracted, but I know I can go here, find it by the SOL and have a variety to choose from. So it's really great.
Wonderful. And one more, let's hear from Ashley. It looks like you're doing math workshop model. How is this going to help you with math workshop?
Yeah, we are, well, as a school, we are doing math workshop like full on this year. So just having those resources available to share with the team, just to set up our routines and even be able to like work in games. So if we have a student who is maybe on a third grade level or more advanced, that we could work those into stations for them to meet them where they're at.
Yeah, the Math Strength task, routine, and game work fantastic for workshop. It works great if you were just looking for a quick warm-up. That's what those routines are for. If you're looking for a nice, juicy task, that's what those rich tasks are. And again, games are great for doing in the classroom and even sending home with families. So I'm glad you all saw that. I'm glad you saw that we are focusing on the strength, the bridging standard, and then how we get them on the grade level that we're teaching. Jen, I'm going to hand it back over to you for the how they can help and be co-creators.
Yeah, absolutely. And I appreciated all the discussion and the chat. I think one thing that I think is a theme too is that, as a teacher, there's a lot of great resources out there, and sometimes it is overwhelming. And so to just have one task, one routine, one game per standard, actually the one that we thought was the best, like the teacher designer said, this is a go-to, it kind of helps you because then you don't have to get lost in the weeds. But let's say you want to dig a little deeper and you want a little more information, then you can kind of pull down and get the learning trajectory research and the look fors. And then if you're ready for more, you can actually click on the full module, which will give you all of the VDOE resources that's been developed over the years. So I saw one comment that says MIPS are there. Yeah, the MIPS are there. The quick checks are definitely there prominently because it is part of that cycle of how do you really look for strength. That formative assessment is key to understanding where the edges of students' understandings are. So I think that, it's kind of scaffolded even for teachers. I mean, we talked about scaffolding for students. If you're a math coach, you might just start with just a little bit, right? Like a little appetizer, which might be those clickable links on the right. And then if they're ready for a little more, like, hey, what kinds of questions might we be focused on? Pull down that arrow. And then those of you, I saw someone who said they love that NCTM article, like you really love classroom research. You might want to click on and look at those resources, which are all on that full module. So hopefully this could be a really great resource for you. We do want to see if you guys have any questions, so please put that in the chat and we'll see if we can answer some of them. But some of the other questions might be, well, how do I use it with my teachers and how do I start? And what might be a way to kind of get my colleagues to start using this with me? And so we're actually going to have a workshop in September that's going to be delving deeper. Today was more of an overview and a tour and kind of whetting your appetite with the resources. But if you are interested in learning more, bring your colleagues. We're going to have a workshop in September, and we're hoping to kind of get you to share some of those thinking. We also think that, we have like tapping into the geniuses around Virginia. We know we have a lot of brilliance even in our teacher networks. And so we're hoping that you'll be able to navigate through the feedback form, which is at the very top of every module. And you'll click on that. And what you'll see is that we're seeking for feedback, but we're also hoping to celebrate some student work. So if you actually try one of these, and you have some awesome student work, we know that the just-in-time quick checks are so powerful. It outlines some of the common conceptions and some questions that you might be asking, but it would be great for us to even have some student work like the ones that we just looked at. So feel free to use that feedback form to kind of share some artifacts. In fact, we're thinking about having a gallery to showcase some student strength. So maybe some of your students would be so excited and tickled to see their work shared, whether it's student work from tasks or routines or games. Feel free to share that. So we have the feedback form, like I said, and I want to make sure that we have some time to answer some questions. So are there any questions?
Jen, we did have a question about, are we going to be creating these for Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2? And we were asked to target grades K through 8 for this particular project. But I've been thinking about, that as well, how that could certainly be helpful to teachers, the high school level too. So that hasn't been planned yet, but certainly is something that we're considering.
Excellent. Other questions?
Jen, I know some folks were wondering when the other standards were going to become available. I thought we'd let them know that actually our teacher designers have already finished them. We are just in the process of vetting it. So they're going to be coming soon. They're going to be coming this fall, and they'll be up there. There's very, very little left to do on that other than making sure that we have the most quality pieces for you all when it becomes live.
And we'd love to hear stories. That's one of the things that we'd love to showcase in our math strengths. I think we're building not just math strengths in our students, but in our cadre of teachers in Virginia. So we'd love to hear if you try some of these resources and you have great success, or you guys learn together. We'd love to hear some stories from the field, and we'd be happy to hear about it. Teresa's easy to reach, twills@gmu.edu, and mine's pretty easy, jsa4@gmu.edu. So we're pretty accessible, and we love hearing from teachers across Virginia. So we thank you for being here today. We hope that it's a valuable resource, and we will continue to make it even better. So let us know, what else would you like for us to kind of build into this? I think there's some ideas that we're playing with, but we'd love to hear some of your ideas. I'm going to turn it back to Tina. Tina, if you have any other comments.
We had one other question about the September 28th session. We will be advertising those on Teacher Direct. And so if you're not signed up for that weekly email, you may want to look on our VDOE website for how to sign up for that. We also are holding a fall series of webinars, so there will be additional webinars that are going to be announced towards October. We have 2 additional webinars that we're trying to plan out for that. So please be on the lookout. We're trying to have a whole series of different webinars to support you. But thanks
Yep.
for being here and have a great evening, everybody, unless somebody has something else.
I just wanted to shout out to our teacher designers again. Thank you so much for being here. And we're just so very proud of your work and your dedication. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good evening.